Adam Morrison here. When it comes to top-tier contracting, my go-to choice is McGillivray Environmental. They're not just any contractor, they're the best in Spokane and North Idaho. With years of experience, they handle it all. New construction, meticulous repairs, and asphalt overlays. From start to finish, they ensure your project is completed with the highest quality end results. And here's the scoop for this year. McGillivray Environmental has expanded its services to include asphalt paving. That means top-notch commercial parking lots, residential driveways, and road construction. So, ready to kickstart your project? Reach out to Kip at McGillivray Environmental by calling 208-556-6384 for your free estimate. Don't forget to mention my name, Adam from the Perimeter, and experience the difference that McGillivray Environmental brings to the table. Again, that's 208-556-6384, McGillivray Environmental. My number one choice for all my contracting needs.
HDG Architecture is proud to be a sponsor of The Perimeter with Adam Morrison. There is another podcast that you all should be listening to, and it's called If Not Now, When? This podcast, which Josh Hassong of HDG Architecture hosts, has a clear mission to ignite positive change within the Spokane community. On the podcast, Josh brings together diverse individuals from city officials, business owners, journalists, influencers, and big thinkers to have meaningful conversations about what we can do to help transform downtown Spokane into an even more vibrant and robust community. By talking to these movers and shakers, the podcast aims to inspire and empower its listeners by actively shaping their city's future. You can find the If Not Now When podcast wherever you are listening to The Perimeter at, or you can find it in the description of this episode.
Welcome to Season 3, Episode 11 of The Perimeter, sponsored by McGillivray Environmental. Again, it's another weird deal to be talking about another loss here, bud.
I was going to say, like, this is the third episode in a row we're talking about a loss.
Yeah.
So it's,
yeah,
we're not used to this.
Yeah, especially a home loss.
Yeah.
It's the second time in the last 2 years. We had that 80-something game win streak or whatever it was last year, and LMU got us, which made sense. We're due, but we're not used to losing non-conference games.
No.
Obviously, San Diego State's a very good team. They were in the 20s on the net, before the game, just outside the top 25. So we knew it was a good game. They were 8-2 coming in, very good defensively, but it was just a struggle for us from pretty much the 30 minutes. The last half of the first half was kind of ugly. Yeah. Obviously, every time we do these episodes, we recap the games, then we preview what's going to happen next, coming up on the schedule. But there's some major issues for this club that we've talked about and we've hinted at, but we've been fair based on sample size. But now it's about halfway through the season, so it's fair to kind of look at the totality and all the numbers and what they mean, and what personnel decisions could maybe happen or schematic decisions could happen. But it's not the sky is falling, but it's getting close. I mean, it's 9-4. It's not terrible. We're ranked 24th. What's the record? What was 120 some weeks or something like that? Been in the top 25,
something like that. The stat I got was that the last time Gonzaga wasn't ranked in the AP poll was April 2016.
Okay, so 150 something or whatever.
Yeah, whatever that is.
Yeah, 16 weeks or 24 weeks of the season or whatever like that. So that's a long time, obviously.
That is. Yeah.
And we're gonna skirt with that for the rest of the year because we don't have any major games coming up as far as quad one opportunities.
I think Kentucky's the only one, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, obviously that's the the February one. But as far as conference, St. Mary's is playing better, but they started off 3-5, I think, and had some bad home losses, which obviously hurts us. And then with BYU exiting this year, that takes another game away. But getting back to the game the other night, I like their energy to start the game. Looking at their roster, they were super talented offensively, but they were that typical kind of really physical bigs, look really strong, a little bit undersized height-wise, but like 240, like look like tight ends type of kids.
Yeah.
You know, and those have given us problems in the last 2-3 years. Let's be fair. So it was a nervous, undertaking to start, and I knew how good defensively they were. Kind of like UConn, obviously didn't have the size on the backside like UConn with Klingon, but had physical guards, had guys that can, switch multiple actions. So whenever you run your wave actions and your dribble handoffs, you really can't get any switches or anything like that, or anything that's thrusting downhill. So, not saying I was like, oh, we're going to lose, but I was like, man, this could be a tough one tonight. Obviously being at home helps. It didn't help that we were no students.
I was going to ask you.
I know.
The game before that was
Jackson State.
Jackson State. And it was like, there was points in that game you could hear a needle drop in that place. And it was dead. Like, it was kind of depressing.
You feel bad because there's so many people that want to get to go to games. And, it's not a knock on the university. It's just the size. And when they first built the place, it was 2000 or whatever, and they started building it, or 2001, like 6,000 was perfect.
Right.
And that's the right number. Like smaller is better. I think even in professional sports, like like MLS and stuff, they're starting to realize like build a smaller arena. We want atmosphere more than just seats. But then, people complain like can't get to a game, and then they finally get to go and they don't really go crazy.
Right. I think you made this point before. Like, I think Gonzaga needs to have like between action, like PA announcer that's like hyping up the crowd.
Yeah, there needs to be a MC.
Yeah.
I've said that for a couple of years, but it falls on deaf ears.
Right.
I think that part could help. Easier said than done. That's easy for me to Monday morning quarterback a thing like that. But you're right. It was just one of those games where I bet you if San Diego was like, yeah, we'll do a home and home, we'll play in December. You know what I mean? Right. So at home. So that part was a little bit frustrating. The crowd wasn't terrible. It got loud at times in there. But with the students, it would have been on a different decibel. So, to start the game, my keys when I was doing my broadcast.
The Perimeter will be right back after a word from our sponsor.
Hi, we're the Greens. Our family is just like any other family.
Quiet on set!
Okay, maybe not. But just like every family, we need banking solutions that work for the way we live. And ICCU has everything we need. We're looking forward to showing you how it works for us. Excuse me.
It would have been on a different decibel. So, to start the game, my keys when I was doing my broadcast was Graham EK's got to have a good game. He's got to play better. We got to have an inside presence. You got to do better against the double team. He was exactly that the other night. I mean, he was fantastic. He was the only one that really had a solid game. Obviously, Anton played good as well, but he's kind of he's going to have a good game every single time type of kid this year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just he's so experienced, and then his game is like I've explained, and everybody kind of understands is loose ball stuff. He fills the stat sheet. And he's going to do that every night.
Yeah.
He's not going to blow you away. He did it against UCLA, but that's kind of what he is. So like when he has a good game, I kind of expect it, if that makes sense.
Totally.
Right. But Graham needed to have a good game. He needed to get lower post touches in the block. 20 and 10, obviously 8 of 13, played really good. Didn't take a 3-pointer, which I'm kind of happy about, and that's not a knock, but I don't think he needs to be shooting a lot of threes. 4-6 from the free throw line. Had 3 turnovers, 0 assists, 2 steals, but very efficient. He was the only one plus minus. So, started the game. He was the one going against their Ladie was their good inside presence. So I thought that he needed to neutralize him at least numbers wise, and he did exactly that. Ladie was averaging 21, had 20, it was 5 of 12. So I thought Graham did his job as far as an inside presence, to eliminate their best player basically. So I was happy to see that, because as the season progresses, he needs to be kind of a scoring leader for us, in my opinion, or at least getting 15, 16 a night at least, just to stabilize some of the outside perimeter shooting woes that I'll continue to talk about.
Right.
I'm tired of talking about them, but it's kind of our Achilles heel this year. You got to have consistent scoring if you can't rely on perimeter shooting, and that's not even like a crazy, insane take or like really deep.
Right.
You know, anybody could come up with that, but it's just really, really puzzling now that we can't turn the corner shooting wise. 5 of 19 from 3, 26%. I think we're the lower 30s as a crew this year. Last time I looked, it was 32. So that's obviously lower. So we're probably like 30, 31, maybe 29. And I've said it multiple times. I think I've said it on the podcast as well. We have to get to good. We won't be elite, but we're not even at good yet.
Right.
We have to get to good. And that's been one of our issues. And I know it sounds funny. It's like, you know, it can't just be shooting. Well, a lot of it is. I mean, there's stretches in these games where we go on, you know, where we just don't make a field goal. You know what I'm saying? And it's like we had the 3:13 left in the first. Okay, so recap, obviously. We were up 6, right? Media timeout. And I said it on the air. I was like, okay, this is really important that we finish the half on a good run and we go 1 for 8 in that last stretch. And then they go on an 8-0 run or +8 and go up 1 or up 2 at halftime. Right? So it just absolutely kills us. And we have so many of those throughout the season. Like the problem is we don't have, I shouldn't say we haven't shown, and that's the better way to say it. Because I think this group is talented enough to do it, to score 8-0, 10-0 runs quickly like we have in the past. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
if you
for
think
sure.
about the last 5 years and the last 2-3 years of teams, we used to, you know, all right, here comes a 10-0 run, and it's a 4-point game now. We're up 14, game over. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or we're down 6 early. There's no anxiety because we're going to go, you know, we're going to score 2 threes in a row and get an and one, and we're up 9, or we're up 3 now. You know what I'm saying? Like 9-0 run real quick, and crowds into it. And we just haven't shown that year. And like that's why I rephrased what I was saying. Like I think the talent's there. Obviously, they're Division I basketball players. They're playing at Gonzaga. It's you know, a top 10 program for 15, 20 years, but they just haven't shown it yet. It's wild to watch, and it's wild to see. It's consistently not great shooting.
And yeah, we just don't have that spark this year. Like Julian was always kind of the spark last year. I mean, obviously Drew Timmy was awesome, could get us on those runs as well. But like, I feel like we kind of we try to get that spark from like Nemhard and Hickman, and like they just never fall. You just never, when we want to go on that run, it just never feels like it's. I don't feel confident that it's going to be there.
Yeah, we were just not be able to. I mean, let's look at the 3-point shooting percentage. Obviously, Anton goes 1 for 1. That's what you figure from him. You're going to get 1 field goal, maybe 2 a game, but that's exactly where he needs to be. Nemhard 0 for 5.
Yeah.
Dusty 1 for 2, only played 20 minutes, got a technical early, got sad. It was a weird situation in the first half. That Bird kid, or I think it was the second, that Bird kid squared up to Anton, and Dusty went over and like pushed him, and they gave him a weird technical. I thought it was a bad one.
Yeah.
And then didn't play the rest of the games. He does that sometimes. That happened to me my freshman year at Washington. I got a technical and then play the rest of the game. So I saw Dusty after the game. He was like, "What'd you say?" He's like, "Nothing." He was like, and I was like, "Yeah, it happened to me." And he's like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah, just move on." Like Fewy just was like, "Screw it, I'm done. I'm not playing him tonight." You know? And so anyway, he goes 1 for 2, and then Nolan goes 2 for 4. Was obviously good, and then Ben Gregg, our best 3-point shooters, 1 for 5, and then Braden Huff, who's been fantastic this season in small minutes, only gets 2 points and is 0 for 2. So it's just the inability to make 3-point shots, man. And I know we've talked about it, and I'm tired of talking about it like on air. Like it's annoying because you feel like you're picking on kids. Then you know they're amateurs and they're good players, but it has to be brought up and it has to be pointed out because the sample size is so big. We just can't, like you said, like there's no spark sometimes. There's no ability like, all right, I'm going to come down and, you know, high ball screen action, talk about our guards, they go under. I'm going to make this one if he goes under and, you know, make a big 3 or anything like that. It just hasn't come to fruition this year. It's tough to watch too because you could see the want to do it, and it's just not dropping. And it's one of those things like what do you do schematically? Like, there's always idiots on the internet and stuff. It was, we're not running the right offense. Like, we've been running the same offense for a decade now.
Right.
Right? I mean, at some point, like, guys got to step up and make shots. And I think they're good enough players. It's not a talent issue. I think it's maybe a confidence issue or just a block. But at some point, guys have to make shots. And that's not even like me, I'm not trying to be an asshole about it, but it's just like, fuck, man, you got to make a jumper.
Well, if we're talking about how much they're missing threes in the second half, I mean, they're talking about it too. So it has to be in their back of their head. And Ben Gregg going, 1 for 5. Like, I would think he could be the spark off the bench to hit some threes. And he was also kind of forcing it too.
He's getting scouted now in that department. Obviously, you're going to scout everybody, but it's like, it's one of those, all the hoopers that are listening. Shooter when you check in, you know what I mean? Like, you played AAU, like, you checked in, a guy was shooter, you know what I mean? Like, you let everybody know that's what he's getting now, and it's deserved. But now people are closing out, making him put it on the deck, or not helping on his pick and pop action off the screen rolls. Like, okay, guard, you have to get over it. Big don't helps because they're just looking for the pop. They're not looking for the turn the corner with the guard. So that's some of the reasoning he didn't shoot it as well, but he's not getting as clean as looks. And then we're just having some issues defensively, man. I got to be completely honest, like mental issues, not being able to switch. And I've talked about it the last 2 seasons. I talk about it on my broadcast all the time. Like, the super elite teams that could switch all actions at the pro level and the college level are so much better defensively, and the average fan, I guess, doesn't really notice it until you don't have it. It's that old, you don't realize what you have until you don't have it, or whatever, until it's gone. Rolling Stones, or whatever they said. Is with Graham and like Braden, and Graham's had a fantastic season, but probably not his strong suit is defensively in the pick and roll action, right? That's pretty common, and it's pretty common knowledge.
Right.
Teams are exploiting that stuff now, and then like they're doing pick to pick action, inside, and they got a couple layups off that, or we're going one man removed on situations. In years past, we just switched all those, and then all those actions don't matter. So that part is something that is a fair, not criticism, but just a fair point out of what some of the issues defensively could be. Is 1 through 4 we can switch, but we can't switch 1 through 5. And that makes a big difference. Now, the counter to be like, well, UConn can't do that with a big kid, or Purdue can't do that. And that's very true. But those guys on the backside are 7'4", and they're changing shots. And then you can downhill switch, or you can funnel everything to your big. That's that's a way different we can't switch strategy, right? That's like, well, okay, we'll ice everything on the side and then funnel it to your big to block shots, or at least alter, and then you play off of that. So that part has been really kind of disappointing for me, because a lot of it's mental errors too. They ran that pick to pick action for their big, and it ended up going off his hand to start the second half, but like, it was going to be a wide open layup. And it's like, we can't have those type of, especially when they go on a run and they're up to start the half. We just have too many of those situations this year. And I think it's not a scouting thing. I know that. And that's not even me, like, just because I played for Coach Feud, but like, I go to their scouting deal, I go to their shoot arounds every once in a while. And then obviously I go to on the road games, I go to their team meals and their pregame scout. Like, the scouts are pretty heavy for a college. They're on par with an NBA scout. They really are. They tell you what, guy going left scores at 28% of the time, whatever. You know what I mean? That's what they're analytic driven. So it's not that. I think it's mental errors, mental lapses. I think another criticism, and we've talked about this, with Luka going down, it hurts your opportunity to give Nembhard and Hickman some opportunity to rest. I mean, Nembhard plays 40 minutes again the other night, 5 of 14, 0 of 5. He has 15. He has 9 assists. So, I mean, he's looked good in that department, but 5 of 14 is not good. And he's shooting like 42% or something like that from the field. So he's been fine as far as a floor game point guard, but I guarantee he wants to have his percentages up.
Totally.
And that could be a fatigue thing. I don't know that for sure, but that's a fair criticism. Be like, well, he's playing 38 to 40 minutes a night, and when you have to play defense on the other end, it can be taxing on your body. The easy counter to that, though, and I've said this a million times, like, dude, there's like 4 TV timeouts a half. So I get it, because I played my junior year, probably my sophomore year, I played at least 33, and then my junior year I played like 38. So it's like, dude, you're not that tired, or like, I don't know.
It can't be. I mean, it probably can't be a tired thing. The silver lining I feel like with Ryan is that, like, when he was at Creighton, he was shooting. He shot 35% last year from the three. From three,
and he's like at 19 now this year.
He's
right?
at 15%.
15%.
So like,
yeah,
it's there, and his attempts are even down almost a shot per game, like from last year. So like,
well, then that brings in just another. A quick topic we can cover is it a pressure thing, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah.
Because his brother played here, and his brother's in the NBA, and it looks like he's going to have like a 10-year career as a backup point guard. Like, very good. I mean that in a good way. Like, he'll be on a team every single year as a really good backup point guard, maybe a guy that could start games for you. You know what I mean? And then his brother follows him here, and it's like, oh, Nemhard, you're supposed to be really good.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like
for sure.
That's a fair wonder. I don't know. And I think Ryan's a very good player. He's not had a bad year, but he hasn't shot it as good as he should. And that's a fair criticism. He'd probably say the same thing out loud. Again, we don't want to sit here and hammer guys. They are amateurs, and I don't feel comfortable doing that type of thing. But also, if you're listening to this and on my broadcast, like, we have to be unbiased as possible and tell you, what I think and what I'm seeing, especially with the sample size, not early. So yeah, it was a weird loss because it was a non-conference. We don't lose very many non-conference. It was our last 10-point-plus loss since 2012 was the last one we had. It was crazy.
That is crazy.
At home.
Oh, at home.
At home.
Oh, at home. Okay.
It's still crazy, though, if you think about it. It's over 10 years, 11 years or whatever. And then I mentioned the 2 home losses in the last 2 years. I mean, we had that 80-something or whatever, and then finally got beat last year. But, yeah, it's like, maybe it's just not the iron fortress that we thought it was, right? But
well, not when it's how quiet it is. I mean, I think there is I feel like the crowd brings an element to the kennel. Like, that's always been a thing.
Yeah. True.
And I don't know, like, what the point differential would be if, like, you had like a really loud crowd there getting into the other
students
head
there,
of the other team.
The students do help. This is another discussion, but we've talked about, like, if you serve beers, it probably changes the tenor of the crowd too.
Totally.
But whatever. I'm not even going to get into that. It doesn't matter. But it's just been one of those years that we're obviously not terrible. We're top 25 team. 9-4, but we just haven't seen like a signature game except maybe USC, but you're kind of like USC's not very good. Right. So you kind of feel like, is it fool's gold? I mean, but we shot 12 of 22 from 3 that game. So it just shows you how much the 3-point shot matters. And again, like I said, we don't have to be elite, because we're not going to be elite like we did with, like Corey's crew with Joel. And remember, all those guys could shoot.
Yeah.
Andrew, like every guy could shoot a 3 in that team, and it was Jalen. It was like crazy how good a 3-point shooting team we were. We got to get to good. We're not even that good. We're at like bad.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Hopefully we can get it turned around with the conference games coming up. But I'm just really concerned with once we get later in the season and when the games start to matter more is how much 3-point shooting is going to matter, or how it'll maybe cost us some games. Now, when we continue, you mentioned the Kentucky game in February. That's our last legitimate game to try to get a quad 1. It might be a year, and maybe I shouldn't say this, but it might be a year. We have an edit button, so we can decide later that we might have to win the conference tournament.
I was thinking the last time was 2016.
Yeah,
that was the year where we felt like we had to win the WCC.
What crew is that? I forgot what crew is that. Was it like was that Stock? No, was it Stock's year?
Was that David?
David?
Like I feel like 2016. That was like
Perk and
like Corey. It was like Corey's freshman year.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. I'm trying to think what crew that was.
I'll get the rest.
But we had to win. So I just being objective and looking at the rest of the schedule and going, all right, signature wins. You know, at the end, they always put signature wins, good losses, bad losses.
Yeah.
I don't think we have a signature win yet.
We don't. I don't think we do.
We don't
either. Yeah.
And so, like being objective, as we try to be. Is this a year where we have to win the NCAA tournament? Because what are we, the net?
We're in net like
57.
57, yeah.
So, and there's 64 that get in. It's not exact science, but it's a good, evaluator of where you're going to land and seeding and stuff like that. Now, can we rattle off 15, 16 wins, especially in the WCC? Absolutely.
Totally.
You know what I'm saying? And then we could sit here and being 25-4 going into the tournament. It's a pretty good team. That's an NCAA tournament team.
Yeah, for sure.
So, like, I'm not saying it's, Katie barred the door, oh my God, but it's like, if we don't, that Kentucky game is the last game to get a signature win. So that game, the San Diego State game, was kind of like hope we win this one tonight, guys. We need something to put on the resume, and obviously it didn't come to fruition for us. So
I wonder if that's the last time we'll schedule a December home game against non-conference.
Some teams won't come in. They'll just be like, we won't play. We'll play at home, but we ain't gonna play when the students are there.
Right.
Or they won't say it out loud, but like, we'll come in December, right before. They'll figure out. I mean, we've done that too.
I think the last time we did that must have been against Butler.
No, we did it we played San Diego State there.
Oh,
last time, it's like 2017, and we lost, but they kept their students around an extra day. They had like a I remember seeing it was like an actual promotion, like stay around, like,
right.
And they kept them there, and the students stayed, but they were technically on break.
Yeah.
But the counter to that's like probably a lot of in-state, and then what's another day like as a student in San Diego, in no class? Like, yeah, that's a tough sell. Oh my God, yeah, exactly. So it's a lot easier than doing it here, but yeah. So it'll be interesting going into conference.
The Perimeter will be right back after a word from our sponsor.
Hey, Hunter Green. Did you know that card control from ICCU lets you turn off your cards with just the tap of a button? Off, on.
Trying to pay our bills.
It's a lot easier than doing it here, but so it'll be interesting going into conference play. Obviously, we open with Pepperdine at the arena. Everybody remembers the arena game last night was fantastic. Had a good time. Sell out with Kentucky. I'm glad they're playing a game in the arena, but I'm also kind of nervous that it's not going to have as much pop. And then hopefully the next year they bring in a bigger opponent.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a
because it is cool. Like we said, it's cool. We talked about it earlier. Like, we want people that don't have an opportunity to go to a game have a chance to go to a game, and obviously the arena does that. But like, Pepperdine's not a very good team to go watch.
Right.
Let's play them.
And I was at the Boise State WSU game, and they couldn't sell the stadium out for that game. Like, they had the upper section like blocked out, and that was still like, I mean, WSU fans are a little bit, they get loud for everything, but then they just quiet down really quick. Like, it's a weird environment for a conference game because Pepperdine isn't, I mean, I would say like they have two guys that average like 16 points, 17 points a game. Yeah. So they're always potent offensively and they're not great defensively, but like, we've had issues with them, especially down there. Yeah. Every year we like beat them by 12, but if you look at the meat of the game, like 5 minutes to go, it's a 7-point game. You know what I mean? So like, they've played us solid. And like with this year's crew, if we get cold and we're playing in a different gym, it could get ugly. Defensively, rebounding, we're really good this year. So, I need to make sure that I'm
saying that part of it. This team, even though we haven't shot the ball really well, we're still going to win a lot of basketball games, and we're going to be in a lot of basketball games. It's just the pressure situations, or mounting a big comeback like we had against San Diego State in the second half. You need to make a couple threes in a row. It didn't happen, and that's what I'm worried about.
Yeah.
But yeah, that game will be fun. I think they're doing a alumni deal or something, because it's 30 years this year since the first.
25 years since the
No, but it's 30. It's 30 since the first NIT.
Oh, okay.
Just 20. It was 93, 94, and then it's 25 since the Elite Eight or whatever.
Right. Okay.
So that's what. They're just combining it all, which they should.
I see.
So I think they're gonna have an alumni event during that. It'll be fun to see some of the older guys and stuff like that. We had one this summer that was really fun. Good time. But yeah, so that part will be kind of cool. Hopefully they do something. I'm sure they'll do like a ceremony or something before the game or during. But yeah, those NIT guys got to be recognized, because it started kind of like, all right, we can actually win games here. Why not? Like, why not us?
Yeah.
And those were the John Riley and all those teams, and Fitz, rest in peace. Fitz was great to me I was a ball kid when he was coaching, but then later when I became a prospect, he really helped me a lot with just preparing for Division I basketball. And my dad was the same, but then he was a different voice saying the same thing, but sometimes you hear a different voice.
Yeah.
So that they're going to talk about Fitzy and stuff like that, which is good. So yeah, that'll be interesting. But again, it'll be scary playing in the arena just because the shooting woes,
Right.
and playing in a different gym. And it's not the greatest basketball arena. It's just not.
No.
That's why we haven't played very many games there. But when we had the atmosphere last year against Kentucky, it was awesome.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
In March, it's always fun there as well. Like, and that's the other thing is, like, I think we have second rounds.
I know.
And like,
It's crazy.
we're probably not going to be able to even get a game here, because we're not going to get a 1 or 2 seed.
No, it's wild to think that, because the last time that happened was COVID.
Yeah.
And we just won the WCCs, and then we were literally landed. I remember landing the plane, and they canceled it, and then you feel like the zombie apocalypse was coming. You're like stuck in an airport. It's like, oh my god! Like I saw Chris Haynes, who does TNT, and we ran into each other, and it was like, hey Matt, you know what I mean?
Right,
But it was just like such a weird time. But it sucked, because they would have been a 1 or 2 seed that year and would have got it Spokane, and it never happened.
Never
and then
happened.
Come back around again, and it's might not happen. So anyway, yeah, I mean, this team's got an opportunity to improve. Sky's not falling. They are talented enough to make shots. And 9-4 is not the end of the world, because 2 of those losses, let's just remind people, Purdue's number 1 or number 2, and UConn's number 5 or number 4 or number 3, whatever the heck they are.
Yeah.
Okay, so these are like, let's just understand that these are 2 really good teams that we've lost to. Washington's the one that we're going to look back. It's like, wow, we could have got that one. San Diego State obviously want to win at home, and we just talked about it at length. But they're a good basketball team
great,
too,
yeah.
and they're a bad physical matchup. Didn't you? I mean, like when you watched it, you just look at it, just like those guys are just like massive, and
They
you're
look
like,
like men.
yeah, you're like tight ends, and you're like, this never does. We never do good against some of these type of teams. Like usually when we play those, if we have the shooting, then we can outrun them and outscore them. But if we don't, then they just physically push us around. It's not like we got punked, but I'm just talking about like the physicality of the total game. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, hopefully we continue to improve, but it's got to start happening. And roster wise, maybe June plays more. I don't know.
I don't.
He didn't play. Did he even play? I think he
got in.
DNP'd.
He was.
Oh yeah, he got a minute 20.
Yeah.
So yeah, at the end of the first half, wasn't it? Yeah, in the first half, to avoid foul trouble. So he got basically DNP'd. We talked about Luka being hurt.
Yeah.
I don't know if they announced it, but I think he broke his hand.
Oh really?
I think it was 6 to 8 weeks hand injury.
Oh, gosh.
So I don't know if it's broke, but 6 to 8 weeks doesn't matter what it is. It's still 6 to 8 weeks. So that does hurt. Like, and if you're listening, he's like, well, he hasn't played very much, but yeah, but there was the option for him to play, and I think he was competent enough to steal minutes at the point guard position to give those guys a rest.
I mean, if you look at the roster now, like a guard coming in is Joe Few.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and yeah. I will say this, like this has happened every year, not every year, but we always come into the WCCs and like 3 losses, 2 losses, 4 losses, whatever. And I feel like WCC like always kind of helps right the ship, gets confidence.
Yeah.
And like, and as you pick off games and win, like our ranking will get up, keep on maybe rising up a little bit. And hopefully the biggest thing is getting that confidence and like and going into a Kentucky game on like a hot streak and, you know, stealing one down in Lexington. But
yeah, I mean, if we get that game, it'll obviously be a marquee, and then it kind of solidifies, you know, your chances to make an NCAA tournament. I mean, St. Mary's is good. They're just the early losses, so they're not going to be as high as ranked, even if they're not even top 25, but like net ranking. San Fran is always good as well, and then LMU's better this year. So I think we could either go undefeated or be like 14-2 or whatever. But it's going to be tougher than usual. But I said it last year, like it's more fun to call these games and watch them. They're not 30-point blowouts.
Totally.
So that's the counter to it. I'm always like, well, at least the games are interesting, because a couple of years it was like, what do we talk about?
Yeah.
When am I 35? I mean, seriously.
Yeah,
it's
no,
like
it's
kind
true.
of boring. It's
Yeah.
like, fuck, I got to call this thing, man. It's like, you know, we're going to win by 40, and it's not fun to watch. And then to counter that, like those teams didn't take a dip, but it was like, all right, how do we motivate them during the WCC season? Because they're so good that this is kind of not a waste of our time, but we need to play some tougher games. So yeah, I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. It's a decent first half of the season. Conference is always fun. The travel's fun. You know, and there's the old rivalries and stuff like that. St. Mary's game is always fun. It's fun down there as well. Kind of built one a little bit with LMU last year, since they beat us, and then we hammered them at their place like by 45 or 50. It was one of those like bloodbaths in the first half.
Yeah.
I felt bad for them too. I honestly did, because they were so excited. They had fans, and it was cool. It's like, yeah, bring this program back. And it was like 22 to like 2 at the first media or something. It was crazy. Yeah, I think we shot like 90%. It was wild. Yeah. And he just was just like, oh. And everybody started leaving, and it's like, oh, this sucks. You know what I mean? You felt bad. You're like, But so anyway, thanks for listening. Thank you to our sponsors, McGilvery Environmental, Idaho Central Credit Union, and HDG Architecture. Keep listening. We'll see you later.